welcome back to another episode of the Filmaholic. This is the One Tree Hill Rewatch, and today we're going to talk about episode 612. This is the mid-season finale of season 6, which so far this first half of the season has been pretty solid. And this is a pretty good mid-season finale, I think. It originally aired November 24th, 2008. It's got it's not Christmas or really Thanksgiving themed, but it does have that in the background that kind of gives you the time of year with Jamie's talent show, the song that he's supposed to play on the piano, as well as decorations in the background. The episode's titled "You Have to Be Joking," an autopsy of the devil's brain. I would think this is in regards to James Van Der Beek's character. Yes, James Van Der Beek, who played Dawson's Creek, played Dawson in Dawson's Creek, joins One Tree Hill in this episode. He comes back for several episodes. I believe it's a total of 4 this episode and 3 more later in the season, where he plays a director, a coked out director, crazy, and not very good, I would think. I mean, they say he's an A-list director, but, we see the big poster up on his wall, which is like Trouser Hound. It's like some movie about a dog, and then, which is interesting too, because in an upcoming episode, Lucas has that DVD to show Jamie and Andre, which is interesting. But yeah, he's got these crazy ideas, wants to kill Haley off, then decides, well, Lucas and Haley should just end up together instead of Lucas and Peyton. And he makes a little wink as far as Dawson's Creek goes, about how people get crazy about who characters end up with, which I thought that was interesting. I always wished, honestly, though, I'm glad they brought him in. I thought it was cool they brought him in. And not only did they bring him into One Tree Hill, but they brought him in as a director. So I thought that was amazing. I personally, now, One Tree Hill's on the CW, but being that UPN and WB collided, this is still WB properties for the most part that are on. Well, I think they all are that are on CW. I wish he was actually playing Dawson in this episode, and they had actually brought Dawson Leary to One Tree Hill, since he was playing a director, and had him play that actual character, because that way we could have got a continuation of Dawson, because he didn't have to bring any other characters from Dawson's Creek in, because those went their own way, and he was by himself and as a filmmaker then in that series. So it would have been cool to see him continue, even if he was a coked out director. Like, this is what happened to Dawson. That's crazy. Like, I want to see it. But I don't know. It's probably tangled up in different rules and laws and stuff as far as contracts, studio contracts and whatnot, that they can't get the rights to Dawson for the show. I don't know how it went, but they do kind of they mention Dawson's Creek as a show, sort of, several times. But really, I think they were talking about the Creek, and we'll talk about that when we get to season 9, how it's mentioned the show The Creek, which is the show Dawson made at the end of Dawson's Creek. It wasn't actually Dawson's Creek, it was The Creek. So that, in a way, makes me think that these existed in the same reality. So who knows? Maybe I'll just believe this is Dawson, that he's going by a different name. Got a different nickname, because I feel like, too, at one point they call him Dixon, and at one point they call him Reese. So I don't really know what his name is. Maybe he's just giving people random names. I don't know. Probably not. But even if you couldn't get Dawson in the show, I'm glad that you went the exact opposite way that they would have Dawson act, and that's a coked out director. I thought he was great. Not the character really, but just his performance as this crazy character was awesome, and it was cool to see him in One Tree Hill and in future episodes as well, and how his character plays. But that happens. Lucas goes and sees him, and it doesn't go well. He doesn't want to make the movie with this guy, obviously, because he doesn't know anything about the story as far as seeing the vision that Lucas and Julian won't. Julian's doing his own thing in this episode. He sends Lucas there to meet with the director, even though Julian doesn't want this director, really. But the studio, led by his dad, which you find out in the next episode, wants this director. But Julian is doing his own thing. He's trying to... First of all, he meets Sam. So we start the relationship there a little with Sam and Julian they have throughout the season, of Sam's work as a writer, and Julian's interested in that and wants to be supportive of Sam. We also introduced Evan Peters in this episode. Now, I like him now in terms of his other stuff, seeing him in American Horror Story, that different. He's a good actor. I didn't like him in One Tree Hill as Jack Daniels. So watching it now, I'm like, oh, I do like him, so it makes it a little bit more bearable. But watching it for the first time, completely hated it. Hated that character, and hated having to spend time of each episode seeing the relationship between him and Sam, which I could not care less about, and how that takes away from screen time of other characters, and why anyone in the writers group thought this was a good idea. Personally, I just don't understand it. But he's introduced, and he's not bad in this episode because he's not in it much, and it's pivotal to the storyline. But he's introduced, and then you've got Sam and Julian, and then Julian goes and talks to Brooke because he wants her to be the designer, make the clothes for the movie, first of all, the first scene we have with them is one that we see flashbacks of several times, and it's a really good scene of their first introduction, of her dancing to the Breakfast Club song, Don't You Forget About Me, and it's just a great little scene, and then he walks in, and then they have a little exchange of, you were the priss, or you were the I can't remember what she calls him, the stoner. He's called the criminal in the Breakfast Club, but I think she calls him the stoner, and he says, well, if you say so, they end up together. Which I love their exchange there. And then he ends up getting a call from Sam, and she's concerned, and then she ends up turning down the chance to work on the movie. She doesn't want to do it. But then I love too, you end up seeing who Julian really is. If you had any doubts about him so far, you see that at the end of the episode. And it's just one of my favorite shots in this season. Of she walks in. First of all, he finds out about the Sam's missing when she goes to talk to Owen. And this is kind of where you're like, man, they hate this character is garbage now. Like, he doesn't help Brooke, and Julian walks out, and he's like, it's not my problem to Brooke. But then she sees Julian again at the diner, and we find out Julian really was there to check on Sam, because it's mentioned at the beginning of the episode he doesn't drink coffee. He's getting a coffee, and then she walks out of the diner and sees him toss the coffee into the trash. And it's just like, I just love it because the way the shot is on her face and goes to him is really beautiful. And then, knowing their characters, their future together, which is awesome. But so I really like that stuff, and to go back a little bit, because I'm jumped ahead myself with the Brooke stuff with Julian and all of that. We got the stuff with Lucas. Peyton's worried throughout the whole episode. She goes to the doctor, which that doctor who she talks to is actually Greg Prange, the director, or one of the directors of the series and producers, which also I forgot to mention. Mark Schwann also, he wrote and directed this episode, being the mid-season finale. I think this is the first episode that Mark directed that wasn't a finale, which is interesting that he chose this one. I mean, it's an obvious one to choose, but there are other episodes that he could have done before this that I think would have made more sense, like the 100th episode, as far as his first episode outside of a finale. But Peyton's worried throughout this episode that she has cancer. It kind of like hints at that, leaves that for a cliffhanger at the end of the episode of her calling somebody and saying, or calling Lucas and saying, I have to tell you something. And we see the cancer thing on her computer screen and the call from the doctor, which, by the way, I don't understand that shot when she's at the doctor. It looks like it's in a morgue. Really weird, and don't know what doctor's office would have that on the walls or why you would go to one that looked like that. But that's throughout the episode. Also exchanges with her and Mia. Mia's kind of being bratty in this episode, not wanting to listen to Peyton, not wanting to take the record label's advice of, they send her a bunch of songs to choose from to sing that other people wrote. She's like, I write my own music, but she's not writing anything. And then Peyton's eventually like, hey, I don't even know if you should be on this label anymore, because she's dealing with her own stuff. She's not going to listen to Mia being bratty. So that's going on. And Nathan has the basketball tryouts for the Charleston Chiefs in this episode. Well, I don't even know if I'm not sure too much about basketball, so I'm not sure if it was just that team or if it was a bunch of scouts there looking for Nathan, for looking at different players and their opportunity to join those teams, which he ends up obviously becoming a Charleston Chief, which is a B-League team. So it's not actually the NBA yet. But he joins that team, and he meets the guy there he met earlier that wanted him to be a coach for a team in Indiana. But now, and we find out in the next episode, that guy's actually going to be a coach for the Charleston Chiefs. He didn't want to be a GM anymore. He wanted to go back to coaching. So that happens. But Nathan tries out. He does phenomenal in the episode, and he does it for Jamie and Quentin. So that's nice. That's what he's got going on throughout this episode. You also have, like I mentioned in the last episode, it's kind of an annoying storyline, and I don't think they should have done it because it ruins Millie's character for me personally. But they have this stuff going on with Gigi. She was annoying bringing her back too. But with Mouth, Millicent and Gigi, where Gigi's Mouth's intern, and she's being very flirtatious. And Mouth, he says a lot of the right things to Gigi, but he doesn't fully do his actions right. As far as like they should never be working late together and drinking, even though he says it's worse than it sounds. Like he shouldn't have been doing all this, and he should have never let her come home and stay in their bed and all this different stuff. But this episode, she is leaving, and she ends up sending Mouth a dirty pic at the news station, by the way. So she sends him this, and he doesn't forget to delete it from his phone. Millicent ends up finding it on his phone and gets mad, obviously, and then she goes to Trick, and the episode ends hinting that she's going to sleep with Owen, who has, he's been in rehab and stuff, relapses and starts drinking in this episode. So the episode hints that they're going to sleep together, which they do when you find out in the next episode, which ruins, to me, both of those characters. Didn't really like either one of them moving forward in the series. So you got that stuff going on. Like I said, a lot of stuff with Jolene and Brooke really setting up their relationship in this episode. And then Sam finds out from Jack, too, that his brother is the one that attacked Brooke because of things that Sam said. Now, Sam never asked for her to be attacked. And she's very upset about it when she finds out. And it just shows that Jack and his brother, Xavier, are both honestly fucking creeps. I don't feel sorry for really either one. Even Jack, who they give you the sympathetic storyline, and partly you can understand it's mainly X that's a creep, but even Jack's like, I don't know why you can bring up this as your brother and all this, but the dude's obviously a creep, and he attacked anyone, but he attacked Brooke, a woman, in her shop and beat the shit out of her, and obviously you knew that, and you're okay with it. So I have no sympathy for Jack, honestly, personally. But all that happens in this episode, the episode also ends, which I want to go back to the beginning real quick. The episode opens with a voiceover, which I thought that was handled well. And we have this slow shot over the water that goes to Quentin. It shows him too. This is Quentin's last episode too. I mean, obviously his character's dead, but this is the last episode we actually see Quentin in any kind of capacity, which is cool because it goes back and does that at the end too with the voiceover. And we see Quentin again, and he has the cape that Jamie made, and that's the last thing we see of Quentin is him putting on that cape and walking out in the basketball gym into the darkness. And I love that. I thought it was beautiful. And then we see Sam get into the car with Jack and Xavier at the end, and he's super creep, and that's how the episode ends with this cliffhanger of her being with them, which I thought was awesome and played well. Although I probably didn't love it when I watched it on TV because I was demanding where Dan was, but watching it now, it works for me, and I like it a lot. Another thing I want to point out is this is the first episode that Dixie Grill in Wilmington is featured, and if you haven't been to Dixie Grill, if you go to Wilmington, definitely go to Dixie Grill for breakfast, or anytime really, because they have a lunch menu too, and they have really good food. Just big fan of them and their breakfast and just their food in general is really good. They have alcohol too, which it's interesting too, because now in the show when it appears in this season, at least in this first episode, there's no bar in there. It looks a little bit different. They've remodeled it, and it's gotten even better. So definitely check that out. But this is the first episode that's featured. The diner in the episodes leading up to this was definitely different. I don't know where that was, and I haven't been to that. But this is the first one they film at. It's like, no, this is what we're going to use from now on. They use this... the rest of the series, I think they use it in season 9, but I know they use it in 6, 7, and 8. And I believe they use it in at least one episode of 9, but we'll see. But yeah, check that out if you guys go to Wilmington, and that is the mid-season finale of season 6. Next episode, I'll be talking about episodes 13 and 14 of season 6. So check back for that, and I will see you guys next time.